I'm Lisa Curcio, and I'd love to welcome you here to Lisa's Stamp Studio. Today, we're going to learn how to make a card pleat technique that you can do in minutes, and you're going to absolutely love this. A huge shout out to my customer, Karen, who shared this technique with me, and I couldn't wait to share it with you. And I've got several variations of the technique to share with you in tonight's additional samples. So make sure you stay with me to the end of the video. If you are here for the premiere, we would love to chat live with you. That's right. I'm here with you right now in the chat. So go ahead and log into your YouTube account, which uses your Gmail address. That's going to allow us to interact with you and answer your questions live. Also in the live chat with me, you'll see that name in blue, Gina Curcio Holly. She is my daughter. She's also an avid card maker, and she works here at Lisa's Stamp Studio. And we're going to both be here to answer those questions. Finally, I want to make sure you know all about that free project sheet. That's going to be linked down in the video description below for you, and you're going to want to grab it because I put a template in there for you for the pleat technique for this card. It's absolutely free, and it's going to include all the pictures for all the samples I'm going to share with you as well. Now, before we get started, I want to make sure you know all about the online stamping retreat that is happening in just a few short weeks. Right now, registration is getting ready to open on April 26th, and we want you on the wait list to be notified when registration opens. This is a full day online event for $45 that includes 6 live demonstrations throughout the day. It's also going to include a huge tutorial of projects for you, 36 in total. And did I mention 50 giveaways? You do not have to watch live. You have lifetime access to all the recordings as well as all the tutorials. Gina and I partner with Kylie Bertucci, who is the #1 Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Australia, and her immensely talented husband, Bruno. If you've not followed them on YouTube, go check them out. You are in for quite a surprise and a lot of delight. We look forward to having you join us for this online retreat, so join the wait list at onlinestampingretreat.com. All right, ready? Let's get started. You're going to need a piece of designer series paper for this technique. I have tried it with cardstock. It does not work well, so try designer series paper. You're only going to be able to see one side of the pattern, so these double-sided patterns are fantastic, which means that you can pick and choose whatever you'd like. I'm going to be using the Stampin' Up! Paper trimmer. The trimmer includes both the cutting and the scoring blades. They stay right here on the clear track at the same time. They navigate up and down out of the way, which means you don't have to remove them. Love the clear guide. One of the other things I love about this trimmer is you're going to notice that there are some dimensions here to the right side. So when you're doing some small scoring marks, it's probably a lot easier to hold more paper here and then score here. Very simple scoring lines tonight. Make sure you use that straight ledge here across the top. The first scoring line is at a 1/2 inch. Now, as I mentioned previously, you could obviously turn this and start here and then rotate the paper. But just for the sake of the video, to keep it nice and simple for you watching, let's go ahead and line this up at a 1/2 inch. I'm going to put my hand here and I am going to score. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move it over to 1 inch, and we're going to do the exact same thing, lining it up, making sure your paper is nice and straight, and we're going to score. The next one is going to be at 2 inches. Again, we're aligning it at the top and we're going to score. And then 2.5 inches. Do you see the pattern we're developing here? And we're going to do that all the way across. The next one is going to be at 3.5 inches. And then 4 inches. 5 inches. 5.5 inches. And then 6.5 inches. Now for this one, we're going to have to open up the extendable arm, which I absolutely love. And 6.5 is just here, past the crease where this opens. And we're going to score once again. Now I know that's going to be really difficult to see here on the video, so we're going to start by pleating it. The very first line here on the left, you're going to make what's called a mountain fold, which means it's going to come to a peak. The next one is a valley fold, which means it's going to go down. And you're going to do the same pattern, mountain, valley, mountain, valley, all the way across the paper where we created the score lines. So it's going to look like this when you're all finished. I do not recommend using the bone folder for this, and that'll make more sense in just a few minutes. So I'm just going to come over with my hands and just kind of give it a gentle crease. We want the pleats to show, so if you press it down too hard with the bone folder, that's actually going to press some of that out. I want to make sure that you know too that one of these is going to go to the back side, and obviously I'm going to have to give you some tips on how to attach this so it doesn't expand on the card. Let's go ahead and push this off to the side and let's work on the rest of the card, mainly the image, because you're probably wondering how we're going to get an image on there. And again, multiple samples for you with lots of variations. I'm going to be using a stamp from the brand new stamp set that's debuting on May 1st called Adventurous Sky. I'm going to use the airplane image, but I love that there's so many coordinating images in here, as well as some fantastic dies. So you can construct your own die-cut airplanes if you'd like. There's even propellers, and then images here that tack onto the end to pull a private message. I have my image mounted here to a clear block, and I'm going to bring out my Memento black ink pad. Now you're going to notice that this is very large in comparison to the ink pad. So my favorite way to ink this up is face up on my work surface. I'm going to go ahead and take it and I'm going to tap all the way across the ink pad. Once we've got it sufficiently inked, we can place it on our scrap basic white cardstock and give this a press. Now I've brought out some alcohol-based markers here, Mossy Meadow and Boho Blue. I've separated the lights from the darks here on my work surface, and I'm not going to do a whole lot of this with you, but I want to show you how I blended out the propeller area. Because I have a feeling when you see the image, you're going to be wondering how I created that. Typically, I like to use the light first, then the dark. It's a personal preference, but for this, I'm actually going to work opposite. I'm going to make sure that my dark is very light-handed inside the areas where the propeller is going to work. On the areas outside, I'm literally just going right over the artist's rendering of the actual airplane itself. Once the alcohol ink has had a few minutes to process, it's going to evaporate, and then you're safe to lay down the next color. So I'm just going to show you here, I'm going to use the thick marker side here, and I'm going to go right over it to color this area in. The area here for the propeller, we can go right over this as well, because all of this is going to be inside the wind field of that propeller. I'm going to make sure they stay within the area of the image itself. Now the darkened areas are slightly darker, which is what I wanted. But as the alcohol begins to process, we're going to also need to make sure that we create more of a realistic look here. Let's go ahead and let's add that little bit of a blue bullet tip here to the center, just so you'll get an idea of how this is going to work. Now that this has had a little bit of time to evaporate the alcohol base, I'm going to come in with the light smoky slate marker. I'm going to drag that right over the areas that are inside the image, those little lines. Then I'm going to go over it once again. I'm going to color in the area inside the wind. I'm not being really particular on where the color is going on purpose. Now for this to create the look of movement, we're going to have to kind of mute down these colors a little bit, and that's where the color lifter comes into play. I'm going to use the thick end of this colorless alcohol marker, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to blend out everything inside that wind field area where the propeller is. This is one of those markers that it's really hard to tell if it's working unless you wait for it to process. So I'm just going to cap that, and we'll give that a few seconds, and can you see it start to lighten? The great thing about the color lifter is not only does it lift color and move color, it's going to be able to be buildable. So if this is not light enough for you, after this dries, you can go ahead and process it again. The beauty of this entire bundle is that there are coordinating dies. Now when it's all finished, it's going to look like this. Do you see how the area here where the wind tunnel is around the propeller is a lot lighter than the color outside of it? As part of the dies, there is a propeller. Now, obviously there's two pieces, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to use one. I'm going to bring in my silicone craft sheet here, and just here up in the corner, you'll see my precision glue press. Absolutely love this because I have horrible arthritic hands. It's very small, and the one thing I love about it, it requires little to no pressure here to dispense the glue through the chiseled tip. You're going to find this linked for you on my website under Shop My Favorite Things, and then it's under Craft Room Favorites. I like to get it started so I know it's flowing well, and I'm going to make a small dot right inside the center of that area. With my Take Your Pick tool, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lift that, and I'm going to attach that here. Now I know that it actually covers up some of what we colored, but if you're here, you can actually see that there's a little blue here underneath, which is going to lend some credence to the rest of our image. Let's give that a moment just to sit and dry. Over to the card base now. This is Mossy Meadow. Great thing about Stampin' Up! Products is all the color coordination. So the ink matches the cardstock, that matches the alcohol markers and the designer series paper, and so on. 4 1/4 by 11. I did score it in half before you joined me. I'm going to take my bone folder and just meet up those raw ends and give that a good crease here at the top. From that same package of designer series paper, which is called Take to the Sky, I chose this amazing pattern. Again, double-sided, lots of options. You'll find that most of the designer series papers with Stampin' Up!, one side is going to have a theme, the other side is going to be very generic, which means you can use it all year round. I thought that this needed a little bit of a layer to play up that white background. I'm grabbing my silicone craft sheet. I love to use this when I'm using adhesive, liquid glue, and hot glue because it's going to make sure that I don't get sticky all over my work table. And because I don't do most things straight, I'm actually going to turn this horizontally, and I'm going to hover it over this way. It's a great tip for you if you have a hard time getting equal margins, because this gives you a better perspective on the actual paper itself. Now that this has been adhered, let's go ahead and add some adhesive to the back side of this as well, making sure we got the card going the right way, because I'm going to turn it horizontally once again, and I'm going to attach that here to the card base. Remember our pleats? Well, this is going to have to be attached to something to give it a little bit of stability. So I cut a piece of cardstock here. Now, all the measurements for these pieces are all going to be inside your project sheet. I'm going to recommend that if you want any lift between these panels, you're going to go ahead and do that now, which is what I'm going to do next. Other variations are coming for you, which I have to share. I've got my dimensionals here, and I'm going to use my Take Your Pick tool with that paper piercing tool attachment. I've got one of my dimensionals here. One side is sticky, the other side has the paper backing. I'm going to flatten this out, so I'm going to place one here near the top. I'm going to do the same thing in the middle area, and then another here at the bottom. Let's go ahead and let's remove the paper backings to these three. This now is going to collapse on top of the 1-inch section that is here. So we're just bringing them together. But what's going to happen is you're going to be able to see that there's some depth here. Let's continue and do this again. I'm going to place one here at the top, one here in the center, and of course one here at the bottom. We're going to remove the paper backing. I'm using that Take Your Pick tool, paper piercing tool attachment. And then once again, we're going to collapse this onto the 1-inch section. So now we have 2 sections completed. I'm now going to continue this process all the way across the other panels. Now you're going to see that we have this last flap here. I did choose to add additional panels of dimensionals to the back side. So let's flip that upside down. And then once again, we're going to place them here. This being the back side now, we're going to press that to the back. Those dimensionals are nice and sticky, so they're going to hold those panels together. We also have this side. I chose to do the exact same thing here. So let's go ahead and place our dimensionals top, bottom, and middle. And then this is going to fold on top of itself this way. It's going to naturally want to curl, which is one reason why we need a piece of cardstock in order to attach it. Now let's talk about how we're going to adhere this to here. We're going to flip this panel upside down. Make sure the pleats are going towards you because we're going to use the Stampin' Seal Plus. This is a very strong adhesive. You don't want to be applying it against the pleats. Go ahead and place it across the bottom and various areas across the center, and of course one here across the top. And this is going to go on your piece of cardstock. Now I should mention that depending on the accuracy of your score lines and how you've pleated it, you may need to slightly adjust the width of this panel by 1/8 of an inch from my instructions, because none of us scores and cuts perfectly. I'm going to turn it horizontally, making sure my pattern is going in the right direction. And I'm looking to do my very best to make sure that this is centered across the top and the sides. Once we have it down, we're going to press it gently and we are going to rub from the back. We don't want to press down those pleats, but look at that. Isn't that amazing? All right, now let's go ahead and attach this to the card and let's talk about the image. We're going to add an extra adhesive now to the back side. Again, the Stampin' Seal Plus is very, very strong, making sure your card's going in the right direction. And I'm just looking at the top, the bottom, and the sides to make them as equal as possible. Again, don't press from the front. I'm going to go ahead and open up my card and press from the inside. Now, while we're here at the inside of the card, I took the privilege of using that exact same stamp set and stamping the inside of my card because I know I want this one to be a birthday card. We'll take that and we're going to go ahead and attach that here to the inside, leaving that margin all the way around. Now we've got our image. You may think it's a little tricky because of the pleats on this technique. So let me give you a couple pieces of advice. I chose not to elevate the plane anymore. If you choose to do that, please make sure that whatever you're using, like dimensionals, doesn't fall between the cracks of the pleats. So I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to use glue. So I can see that I'm going to need it here and here. So let's add a little bit here and a little bit here. And then I'm going to look again. Oh, the propeller area is going to be a great spot. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn this on a slight angle. I'm going to place that here at the bottom. Now you're going to need to be patient because it's the raised areas that are going to stick. So remember, we worked here and within the area here. Now, while there's a little glue here, I know that that is shallower. So let's talk about this as this begins to dry. Do you see it here? We can go ahead, we can add some dimensionals in there and what I call card surgery. Now you're going to find that one dimensional is probably going to be too shallow. So we're going to double stack them. So I'm going to take off the backing while it's right here on the paper, and I'm going to take another one and I'm going to place it right on top. So now it's double the original depth. I've taken off the other paper backing and I'm going to kind of use this as my extended hand. This now is going to gently be placed underneath this area here where you can't see it. Do you see me tucking it inside of there? And then we're going to press. But what this does is it creates equal elevation across the image so that the wings here do not sag. Everything else is in perfect shape. Now let's go ahead and finish this up with a couple accessories. These new basic gray and smoky slate pearls work great for all kinds of projects and no, they're not too feminine for a masculine card. I'm going to take one of the smaller ones. I'm going to place it right here in the center of my propeller. I'm going to take another smaller one and we're going to work right on an angle on one of those pleats. Then I'm going to come down here to one of the larger ones. I'm going to place that one all the way up here in the top corner. Now, since I put my sentiment on the inside, I wasn't worried about adding additional text or anything to the front of this card. Remember, you want to leave this pleat so it's visible. Now, let me show you one other variation of this exact same card. This uses the exact same products, but do you see the elevation of these pleats? Really thick. Now, if you're looking at it thinking, wow, what is that? Those are the foam adhesive strips. Now, these are a lot thicker than dimensionals. And in place of the dimensionals, I use the foam. Now, in hindsight, do I like it? I don't hate it. But if you're not careful, you can see the foam. Now, of course, they're going to have to really tip it to see it. When I handed it to my husband, he was like, I don't notice it. Another great way to create extra elevation. Obviously, this is a much thicker card than this one, so it's going to probably need a little bit extra postage, but an idea of variation. Now, let me show you another. When Karen sent the card to us, her card actually had beautiful pleats, but it was nice and flat. And that's because she placed adhesive in the 1/2-inch sections. So obviously, this is not at all going to be bulky for mailing. And for this one, I just used one of those beautiful paper butterfly elements. And it's some of the brand new in color gems. Look at that designer series paper. This paper is called Unbound Beauty and it will be effective May 1st with this other products as well. Gorgeous, simple sentiment. Remember, you don't want to cover up all those pleats. And I have one more for you. Graduation is around the corner for lots of students. And to celebrate, I wanted to make sure I gave you a graduation card with an idea. And that produce this one. I used the Tartan Foil Designer Series paper, which is one of the online exclusives. I used 2 different patterns from that package and used a very simple color palette of navy and the grays. This stamp set is lots of fun. There are no dies for it, but it's super easy to cut out. So I've just put my gown underneath, my greeting with a banner across the top, some very simple bling that's appropriate for anyone. Here are all the cards we created today, and of course that one additional sample with the deeper pleats inside of it. As always, I'd love to know your favorite. Your feedback is so important for me as I'm designing. So go ahead and pop down in the comments below. Let me know which card you favor and how will you assemble your pleats? Will you use adhesive, dimensionals, foam strips, or maybe something else? And if you haven't heard about Stamp Studio memberships, I want to give you all the information. For $5 for the whole month, you'll get a brand new tutorial from me straight to your inbox at 9 a.m. every Monday morning Eastern Time. These are tutorials that I create specifically for the membership, so they're not shared anywhere else. It's a great way for you to get some new ideas. Now, if you're a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I got you covered. The pictures and the tutorials are not watermarked, so you are welcome to use them at classes and clubs and however you choose. You can even distribute them. The only thing you cannot do is sell them. Now, if level 1 is not enough, there's also level 2. Level 2 includes everything in level 1, plus a fun fold card once a month, a discount in my PDF tutorial library where there is a ton of samples and inspiration for you. In addition to that, I do product price drawing for those in level 2. Check it all out on my website under memberships. Now, I know we talked about it briefly, but make sure you take a good look at that last chance sale list. There's a lot of products that are being marked down, some up to 60% off. The last day is going to be April 30th before we kick off this brand new catalog on May 1st. Thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day, everyone.